And we are live. This is so exciting. I'm taking a minute to make sure that we're live on LinkedIn and we're live on YouTube, and we are. This is very, very exciting. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this LinkedIn Live series. In this series, we answer the most frequently asked questions that my team and I receive in our keynotes, workshops, and coaching sessions all around the world so that you can build your skills and your confidence in public speaking and presentation skills. We define public speaking very broadly. It is anytime you speak with one person or more, you're speaking in public, which means it's something we do every single day. At Global Public Speaking, we also believe public speaking is a skill and not a talent. It's not something any of us are born with. It's something every single one of us learns with practice and feedback. I can already see a couple of comments in the chat on LinkedIn. So whether you're joining through LinkedIn or YouTube, please say hello. Let us know where you are dialing in from, so to speak, so that we can see who's here. And you can already start to put some questions for Shelley or myself in the chat. While you do that, I will introduce myself, and then I will introduce our special guest. My name is Allison Shapira. I'm a former opera singer turned entrepreneur, keynote speaker, founder and CEO of Global Public Speaking. We're a training firm focused on leadership communication, helping people speak with confidence and authenticity in their meetings, pitches, and presentations. And at Global Public Speaking, for any of you who have worked with us, you know we have an incredible team of coaches, each with their own unique background and experience. Many of you have worked with Bill Beeman, Casey Carpenter, and John Watkiss on our team. Today, I am thrilled to introduce you to Shelli Vasser Gilliam, the newest member of our team of coaches. Welcome, Shelley.
Thank you, Allison. I'm glad to be here today.
Fantastic. Let me say a few words of introduction about Shelley, and also mention that we have people from all over the world joining right now, from DC, from Orlando, Naples, from Cincinnati, all over. This is fantastic, and we hope to see your questions as well. Shelley has extensive experience in the meetings and events industry. She is the immediate past president of Meeting Professionals International Potomac chapter. She is an entrepreneur and has had her own consulting firm for over a decade, and is an incredible networker, which is actually how I met Shelley. This was in, I believe, mid-2020, where Shelley was speaking on a panel sponsored by the National Speakers Association. And I remember there were a number of people on that panel, and Shelley stood out in terms of her warmth, her experience. And I remember hearing her talk about networking in such a confident and authentic way. I remember I wrote down in my notes on Evernote, I want to work with Shelley. I want to find a way to work with Shelley. And now I'm very excited that we all get to work with Shelley. So Shelley, our topic today is how to overcome your fear of public speaking. And so I'm going to ask people to put their questions on this topic in the chat. I have a number of questions to start with, Shelley, and then as we get more questions, we'll put them, I'll share them with you. So to get us started, Shelley, what led you to Global Public Speaking?
Thanks, Allison. And I just want to say hello to all of the listeners out there. I see a lot of familiar names. I think what led me to Global Public Speaking is my connection with what I know that I'm supposed to be doing in life, and that's important. I also believe that my passion for empowering others and helping them understand what it means to use their voice with authenticity, confidence, and intention. And I think there was a lot of divine intervention in why I'm here today, but my pursuit really has been over most of my life. And I think those two reasons, my connection with my purpose and my passion for empowering people, are the reasons.
That's fantastic. And it really, Shelley, ties into what we want to help people discover, which is what their purpose is to speak up. And when you're called to do this, then you're in a great position to help others figure out what and they're called to do and how. As I understand, Shelley, what was your first experience on stage or in front of an audience?
My first experience was when I was about 8 or 9 at a dance recital, and there were plenty of people around me on stage in front of the audience, and that was my first experience. But I had other experiences that included performance and also speaking, whether on stage or in front of an audience.
And a lot of times when we come to the field of professional speaking, we have some performance experience in other areas. I know this myself as a performer. It's different though when you go from performing to speaking. And Shelley, when did you realize you had a fear of public speaking?
There is a difference between performing and speaking, absolutely. And I think it was on stage when I was 15, competing in a pageant. That was the first time. And I could point out some other times in my adult life as well. But I had to give a speech as part of the competition. And I rehearsed and rehearsed. And I did it, but I did it with a lot of trepidation. I did get through it, and I was grateful for that, but I felt nervous. I was there on the stage by myself, which was typically when I would feel more nervous, being by myself versus being with other folks on the stage. So that's when it happened for me, and when I first understood what stage fright really meant.
And what did stage fright feel like for you?
Oh, it feels like just a jumble of nerves. It's unsettling. It could be shaking profusely. It could mean forgetting your lines, which I used to do all the time,
Sure.
and crying. I the joke there's a joke in my family that I couldn't even sing a solo. I had to sing with my best friend next to me in order to do that. So it feels very unsettling, and it feels, as some might describe it, as out of body. You can't gather your words. You're not really sure of what to say, or you forget what it is that you want to say as well. It's something that's just very that takes over, I'll say,
Right.
your body.
And I can imagine that a lot of people listening are resonating with that and have experienced that themselves, whether it was something that happened when they were 15 or it happened yesterday or maybe
Mhm.
even this morning. And I'll ask, I see people putting some questions in the comments, whether it's on YouTube or LinkedIn. Please go ahead and put those questions in and we'll get to them very soon. Shelley, what are some of the strategies or steps that you took then to overcome your fear of public speaking?
Yes, I had numerous strategies. They started out, and you might find this a little interesting. They started out with me researching speakers, people that I admired, and I watched them. That's how simple it was. I watched people over the course of time to just get an idea of their mannerisms, their body language, their eye connection, who they were, what type of speaker or presenter they were, and whether or not what they were saying resonated with me, and how they were telling stories. So I started out with the admiration piece, I guess you'll call it. And then I branched out to actually meeting speakers. Some it happened more organically, and for others, I would approach them if I were attending a program in person. I would wait until the end of the program and try to be the last person in line to meet them, to shake their hand and introduce myself. That tactic actually proved very fruitful for me on a couple of occasions. So I did that. And after that, I made sure that for those who I felt a connection to, I would stay in touch with them, and I used them as a resource, or incorporated them into what I was doing as a resource to me. And I would ask them questions, follow up with them, check in, see what new they were doing, what new content they were putting out. And then I finally got up enough nerve to say yes to some opportunities. Now, that yes had its own set of sub strategies. That yes meant that I couldn't say yes to a keynote speaking opportunity until I was a panelist. So I started out as a panelist, virtual and in person. I then moved on to becoming a moderator, which was fun, and I enjoyed that. And then I stepped up to introducing speakers. And then I became the keynote speaker. So I didn't just launch out and go straight for speaking. I actually had to work myself up to it because, again, stage fright to stage right, but I didn't do it overnight. And yes, I know that rhymes, but that is my tagline. And those are some of the steps that I took. I also continued to take on opportunities, as I said, yes, to speak, whether on behalf of my company or behalf of my community, on behalf of vulnerable populations and people who had experienced certain trauma in their life. And that's what really helped me.
There's so much from what you just said, Shelley, in the past 2 or 3 minutes that's so rich. This could be a workshop all on its own. The first is this idea of working your way up to being on stage on your own, delivering a message, starting as a panelist, moving up to moderator, which is much more involved than being the panelist, but still there are others around you, whether they're your best friend or not, there are others around you, you're all in it together. Mm-hmm. And then introducing other speakers, which I always find is a terrific way to become more comfortable speaking, because you prepare it in advance, it's someone's bio, but it's really not about you, it's about the featured speaker, and then you moved into giving a keynote. And that's really helpful for anyone, wherever they fall in the nervousness, on the range of nervousness. Let's start small with opportunities that we feel at least slightly of a stretch, but not too big of a stretch, work our way up. And then you said something, Shelley, about speaking up on behalf of others. And I want to ask you about this because I want to know, why is speaking up important to you, and what about your experiences makes you want to help others speak?
Absolutely. I realized that when I took the opportunity to speak up, that things started to happen. Certain things shifted. The organizations who at the time were my clients when I was an entrepreneur started to receive more support. Their visibility was raised. I was able to raise more awareness, and that awareness led to more financial support for the organization. I do have an example of a time when I spoke up. There is an organization in the Northern Virginia area, and that helps women who have experienced, women and children who have experienced domestic violence, and they're survivors. And they were my client, and they needed a place to locate or place what they called an art therapy project. This art therapy project was completed by the women who had experienced domestic violence, and it was really a conversation starter. So they would take T-shirts and they would demonstrate what happened to them and how they overcame and became survivors of domestic violence through an art therapy project, all on this T-shirt. So they would paint them and color them and those kinds of things. Well, each year during Domestic Violence Awareness Month, the organization looks for a place to house or hang these T-shirts, sort of like a line, right? A clothesline, if you will. And we had nowhere to hang it. And I said, wait a minute, hold that thought. And I thought of the most unconventional place to hang a T-shirt, because domestic violence is not something that is talked about. It's usually swept under the rug, not a big conversation starter. And I said, why don't we hang it at my place of worship in the hallway, and everyone will see it? And that's what we did, not just 1 year, but 2 years. And the second year, my church called me actually asking where the T-shirts were. And we hung those shirts. Initially, they were supposed to be up only in October. We ended up hanging them for 2 weeks into November. That started programs, conversations, discussions, service providers coming to the church. And it was just incredible to see what speaking up will do.
That's right. And it reminds us that speaking up is not the end goal. It's the first step that then leads to taking action or inspiring others to take action as well. And that's what you've shared. And Simone asked a question or made a comment here, says knowing she loves knowing more about how you got comfortable speaking and using your voice to be an advocate. So can you say more about that process?
Yeah, I think we have so much that we can do and say for matters that are meaningful for us that we can support. That is one of the ways. I'm not sure of how many of the listeners have seen the recent newsletter that Global Public Speaking put out, but 5 opportunities for you to incorporate communication skills. One of them is to become an advocate or an ambassador for organizations, philanthropies, causes that really matter to you, that are meaningful for you. And so that's one avenue to take. But I think once you become involved in those types of organizations as a volunteer, you will find that there are many opportunities for you to speak on behalf of the various people that they serve. And then once you do, you'll feel more comfortable in sharing that information throughout the community, your family, your friendship circles, and so forth. And so that's definitely a strategy that I would recommend.
I, I think we can all learn from that. And I appreciate you sharing that. It also, what you're making me realize, and what I'd like to make sure others are taking away as well, is the power as we think about how to overcome our fear of public speaking, to remind ourselves who we're speaking up on behalf of. And that's a technique that we very frequently teach at Global Public Speaking, is to remind people why they care about their content, about their audience, about the work they do, or the issues they represent. And when they connect with that sense of purpose, it reminds them that they're not actually on stage the center of attention. Mm-hmm. Their message is the center of attention. The people and issues they represent are the center of attention. And it would be selfish of them not to get up and speak. If they were afraid of speaking, well, they're actually doing a disservice to the issues and people they care about by not getting up and speaking. And so reframing the purpose of speaking as not about you, mm-hmm. but about the work that you do, as so much more powerful. And then it helps, it reduces some of the nerves, although probably not all. And this brings me to a question that Kara asked, which is, do the nerves ever go away, or are they always there to some degree?
Well, thanks, Kara, for that question. The nerves are always there. The nerves are here today. They'll be here tomorrow, and they'll return someday in the future as well. But you have to figure out how to modulate, if you will, or even moderate, and how do you approach speaking? How do you calm yourself down? What are some of the techniques? And Allison and the Global Public Speaking team, we teach people how to do that. And so I also want to circle back really quickly, Allison, to something that you just said. You know, we sometimes find it hard to talk about ourselves, but when we get out and help others and we're in service to others, suddenly it becomes a lot simpler. So that is a perfect way, once you understand the issue, the impact, and what it is that's needed, to raise awareness, to have you practice. Remember, every time you're speaking, it's a way of practicing. And so I would encourage anyone, whether it's you have 3 minutes at the podium or in front of an audience, or you're the keynote speaker, or you're introducing someone, go ahead and take those opportunities, because they serve as practice, and that's important. And sometimes we find it easier to do when we do it on behalf of other people and organizations that we are passionate about.
It's so true. And it's, even when we look at the definition of public speaking as anytime you speak with one person or more, then every day speaking up in a meeting is a form of practicing your public speaking, whether or not you're on the agenda, politely interrupting someone who may have gone off on a tangent. And we teach people how to do that in an appropriate way. And we also teach them how to hold the floor when someone else is trying to interrupt them as well. And Shelley, when something else that you said that was so important is remembering who we're speaking up on behalf of. And one of the techniques that I know we teach as well is to reframe those nerves as excitement, because they're both adrenaline. The nervousness, the excitement, it's both adrenaline. The only difference is how we engage with that and how we respond to it. So if we, instead of responding to it by going, oh no, this means I'm nervous, I can't do it. But if we pause and breathe, reframe those nerves as excitement and say, I am so excited for this opportunity to share something that is so important. Whether I'm sharing a new business strategy, where I'm sharing the voice of the customer, where I'm sharing an idea I have about how we can raise awareness for victims of domestic violence, whatever that issue is, then that excitement gives us the energy that we need to really step into the spotlight and speak up, and it impacts the energy of our audience.
Yes, absolutely. Everything you said there, absolutely. It's about reframing, Kara, and thank you, Allison, for saying that, because it is, and where we put our focus on. If we focus on the nervousness and not being able, and oh my goodness, this is going to shake me apart, that's one thing. But if we focus on what we're really there for, why we're there, it will help.
Absolutely. Now, we've got a lot more questions, so I'm going to go through some of these questions that we see. I see Scott has actually asked a couple of questions. I'll offer one of them. He said, how do you balance professionalism and vulnerability as you're speaking? Whoa, this is a big topic, Scott.
It is a big topic. Hi, Scott. I balance it with authenticity. I am who I am, and I will speak on topic about whatever is before me. It is a delicate balance, but when people know you, and you're speaking authentically about whatever it is you're talking about, they will come to expect it, to embrace it, and be totally okay with it. And so I think if when you're speaking professionally or you're speaking in a personal setting, just being completely authentically you and confident in who you are and what you are saying will be fine.
And there's so much there, Shelley, that we can learn from what you just said. It's authentic, it's being yourself and knowing what you're talking about. So there's preparation, there's authenticity, there's preparation, and there's accuracy too, because some people use authenticity as an excuse to not prepare. They say, oh, I'll just wing it because I just want to be myself. Well, that doesn't work. We want to be ourselves, as in represent who we are, which brings with it some vulnerability and some imperfection, because we know it's impossible to be perfect. And then at the same time, we need to be prepared and accurate. And all of that becomes that delicate balance. And that's, Brian, probably Scott, how we bring in the professionalism as well. And so, Shelley, you mentioned all of that in your comment. I really appreciate that. And we've got some other questions here. Let's see. Oh, and Scott had also asked, is it harder to, and let me find this exact question. It was a really great question. I want to make sure. Do you find a difference in your nerves or anxiety when you're speaking or training on someone else's content versus your own content? And this is an important question, because many times people in any professional setting are communicating the talking points of their organization, not necessarily what they would have said, but someone on the comms team, hopefully 2 days in advance, but maybe 2 minutes before the speech, handed them talking points and said, can you speak to this? So Shelley, do you find a difference in nerves when it's someone else's content that you're speaking about versus your own?
Well, I find it certainly easier when I've written the script versus I've been handed a script, let's just say. But I will say that for me, the nervousness, stage fright, and trying to overcome that, what I realized boiled down to me being on stage by myself. So give me any content, but putting me in front of an audience or on stage, and that's where my nervousness and trepidation came in.
Mhm.
Uh, and everyone is different, Scott, and for all the listeners, everyone is different. So your stage fright, if you have it, if you don't, congratulations. But if you do, it may be centered around some other things. For me, it was more about being the only person on the stage or in front of the room.
And that certainly makes sense, that if it's you there, then whether it's your content or someone else's, the nerves are going to be there. Absolutely. And then let's see, I'm going to ask you one more question, and then we're going to bring this to a close. I wanted to ask if you could share one public speaking tip that made a difference for you. If you could share one tip that worked for you with our audience, what would it be?
Absolutely. And I could do this very succinctly. It's say yes. Even if
Mm.
you think you're not ready, you're a little nervous or apprehensive about it, you've got to say yes. The reason a person asks you is because they believe in you and that you can do it. Say yes.
I love that. And you've given us numerous ways to say yes. And I know there's a link in the comment section here where people can read the article, our newsletter for this month that you wrote about how to say yes and what are the different opportunities that we can say yes to, whether it's starting small or jumping into something in our own way. Say yes is a great mantra for 2023. I have one more comment here. If you liked today's series and would like to stay in touch with us, I know Shelley and I are both very active on LinkedIn, so please connect with us on LinkedIn. And Shelley mentioned how important it is to practice our speaking skills every day. If you would like tips on how to practice public speaking every day, scan the QR code that I just put up on the screen. I know it's going to it didn't cut off your head, which is great. You'll receive tips that you can use to practice your public speaking skills every single day in a meeting, in a pitch, in a presentation. So go ahead and scan that, and you'll be able to receive those monthly speaking tips to continue to practice and put these tools into action. And remember that by taking those steps to speak up, you're then taking the steps towards taking action on behalf of whatever it is that drives you in your work. Shelley, I want to thank you for being with us today. I see so many wonderful comments here in the chat, and I want to thank everyone for joining us. I learned from you. I hope everyone else learned from you as well. And thank you for joining our team, and thank you for bringing your authenticity and your warmth and your passion to help others to our team. We are beyond excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Allison, for welcoming me to the Global Public Speaking team. It's been an incredible and remarkable time. And I thank you for this platform and allowing me to share this with you today. Thanks to all the listeners. And please, if you want to keep in touch with me, many of you know you can find me on LinkedIn. And I hope to hear more. And if you have any questions, you're free to ask them to me as well. So I hope to hear more from each of you in the future.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.